all this stuff pretty soon.
Okay, is that the level you want?
Turn it down.
You can turn it around.
Hey, turn it down!
Turn it down, guys!
See, at a certain point, some of the fun of this shot is just momentum, going in through fire.
Ron gave us a lot of prep time, and we played with fire, and I set guys on fire, and we watched fire burn, you know, see what it would do, and it was all a learning process, I think, for everyone. Ron says, I think he said like 20-some explosions going off in this building, and there's all the fire, our whole cast is in this building at the time. And I go to Ron, I said, you know, Ron, I'm a little bit nervous about this, especially with, you know, you got your camera crew in here too. I think we need to do a test. He says, if you think we need to do a test, do one. So I went to Alan, I says, Alan, we need to do a test. He said, really? You know, that's an expensive test. But Ron always said, no, if you need to test, you do your tests, all you need, and no matter what it costs. And he let us test a lot of things, you know. We got more confident each time. You know, fire doesn't forgive you at all, but we got more confident, and the stunt guys got more confident, and we did things that probably I didn't think would be possible to do before we started that film.
Walter's guys, I'm sure he handpicked them for fire, but it's the most incredible fire group I've ever seen. They just ran in, they did everything, they never complained, they wanted to do more.
They didn't have any fear of the fire, or they should have had more fear of it than they did.
I have personal photographs of guys, their whole body on fire and their heads on fire and everything, and they just say cut and then, okay, let's do it again, you know?
The one stunt guy for Kurt knew he had to jump across fire in the deal to hit this valve to turn the thing off. So the other stunt guys, they were teasing on Casino, the doubles. Kurt, what the hell was going on in your room last night? We heard these thumps against the wall and everything. He said, well, I had my bed set up, and I had a chair, and I was seeing how far I could jump from the chair to the bed to see if I could make that valve over there. He said, I kept hitting the wall and making it. He wanted to be sure he could make it across there and get out of the fire, so he was practicing in his room.
I was suggesting to Ron that we try to first have a stunt guy go through fire, and then if our actors were willing, to try it with them. And I think Kurt Russell was the first guy who said, okay, we'll shoot a test and I'll go in the fire and see how it feels. And then, of course, once he said it was okay, then everybody else was okay.
You know, Kurt Russell's done them all. He knows how to do them all, and so does Scott Glenn. They were all great. I mean, even Billy Baldwin, he was the youngest kid, you know, which is what he was playing in the film anyway. And he was really eager to prove himself all the time.
Shit!
One of the first shots we did when we blew this building and had to put the actors in, we had to light Billy and Kurt on fire, put a lot of fire on them.
Up, burn it up! Jesus, put it down!
Billy and I said, I wonder if we could take that flame on our backs.
I want you to zip into that shot and head forward, walking toward there's going to be the blast.
Yeah, now is the blast what drives me sideways?
Well, I think the blast should be...
Kurt and I, we weren't in the fire, they set us on fire. Because we're firemen, it gave us the opportunity, when we're in these long boots and the coats and the helmets, we're already protected from the fire. And if you put some glue and light it on fire, you could sit there and look at it for about a minute before it really starts to get hot. And the take itself, you know, I was on fire for never more than about 30 to 40 seconds.
And right about there's when the flame go pull.
Yeah, that flame down there is going to go.
I guess it was the only time I've really been scared doing this movie with it. I had to put them out in the shot. Billy wasn't so much a problem because he was lying down so the flames were coming up, and the special effects people sort of laid the flames out on him. But Kurt stands up on fire in the shot and walks away from me. Once the sucker gets charged, I'm not too sure how easy it is, how fast I'm going to be able to drag it in. So if I get hung up...
Scott Glenn had the hose. Really trust Scott. I mean, he's one of those guys that you know will come through and do what you need to have done. And so he had the hose. And we said, you know, if we get in trouble, Scott will put us out.
Whoa! The first time he did it, I could see the flames on his back licking up into the back of his helmet, where his hair is. So I put the fire out right away, and Kurt said thanks, that was getting kind of hot, and then Ron came over and said, no, you gotta let it burn longer. And I didn't know if I could do that, because, you know, Kurt's a friend of mine, and he was a good guy. So, and Kurt understood what I was going through, so he said, hey, look, Scott, if I really start to burn up, I'll yell Scott, and you put it out. But otherwise, take the timing off of what Ron said.
We were just insane, and we got one take. Obviously, we wouldn't do it unless you could establish that it was us, and it was a shot where, like, I rolled right up into camera, and you could see that it was me, and then Kurt's on fire, and he yells to Scott, and Scott puts me out, and Kurt runs out of the frame, and he puts Kurt out. Really kind of a rock and roll shot.
Ron came up to me and he said, look, he said, you can say no to this, but the best way for me to shoot this would be over Kurt Russell's shoulders to connect you two guys and to see that you're really 70 feet up in the air and that there's a real fire underneath you and that you are, in fact, on fire yourself. And I said, well, that's cool. And he said, but this would mean that you'd have to be set on fire. And I said, yeah, that's fine. And Walter Scott, the stunt coordinator, said a lot of stunt guys won't even do that. And I said, no, it's fine with me. I really regretted that I said I'd do it. Because I didn't sleep for 3 nights. I thought, what are you, out of your mind? When we got to the day, I was really terrified. You know, in for a penny, in for a pound. So I had on 3 pairs of Nomex long underwear and then the fire retardant suit. And then what they did was, I was attached to Kurt through there was a harness that attached to me with a steel cable that came out through my sleeve, up through Kurt's sleeve to a harness that he was, so we were locked into each other.
I was the guy with the 16-foot pole up on a scissor lift. I was the last guy with him right there when we had to light him.
We'd get the camera set up and we'd go right to the edge of the frame line. We were never more than maybe 10 or 12 feet away and had extinguishers, had water extinguishers.
Then they rolled over a scaffold and they painted me with some kind of napalm-like stuff. And they told me, they said, look, you can turn like this and you can turn like that, but don't turn like that because flames are going to be coming up over your shoulders.
I told him, I says, if you start getting hot and feeling yourself burning or anything, just say my name, Walter, just say Walter. He says, what if I forget your name? I says, you won't.
At the last minute, they hit me with a small flamethrower and they set me on fire and then they rolled the scaffolding away and we ran the shot. And we did, I can't remember, something like 3 or 4 takes.
We literally were lighting him on fire and he would just grit it and stand it and all of a sudden he'd get to the point, he goes, hot, hot now. Boom, and put him out.
On like the 5th take, as they were painting me, somehow one of the brushes hit my shoulder and I started spinning on the wires. And I've been a parachutist, a skydiver, so I know that when you get in that kind of a spot, what you do is you kick yourself and to untangle yourself. So I kicked myself to get in the proper position again, and then they set me on fire, they wheeled the scaffolding away and they started the shot, but somehow while I was doing that kicking myself, I got some of that napalm stuff, whatever it was, the flame stuff, on the insides of my legs, which had never been there before. And all of a sudden, I could feel in very private parts of my body imminent damage being done. And I screamed like a lot of, put me out.
And he said, wah, he just barely got wah out, and there were 4 firemen on each side with hoses trained right at him. And they just drowned him, put him out.
And they covered me with foam and everything else and dropped me down to the ground. And the fire retardant pants were gone. The first set of Nomex long underwear was gone. The second pair was crumpled and black, and the last pair was black. And they pulled all this stuff off me, and on the inside of my thigh was a big blister just starting. And luckily, a girl from Craft Services had frozen aloe on the set, and she came over and smeared it on, and it was okay. Walter said right after we did that shot that he was going to talk to the Stuntmen's Association to make sure that I got a credit as a stuntman at the end of the film. And then later on, they also gave Billy and Kurt credits at the end of the film too for just being around fire all the time.
The stunts I love to do. I mean, I basically said to Ronnie, whatever you're going to do, if you want to try and get the camera in there and you could see my face long enough to establish that it's me, I'll do anything you want.
Look at him. That's my brother, goddammit.
These are still our leads in the movie, you know. But they were really professional and really wanted to do it themselves. We had to double them sometimes, you know, but they were really into it, you know. I mean, they were as good as the stuntmen, really, but they just couldn't take the chances with them as we could with the stuntmen. That was a tough one. I even tried to talk Ron out of it. I said, you know, those trucks aren't built to roll over. Let's have a car cut in front. Let's go through into a building. Let's dangle it off of something. He says, no, Walter, I want to turn it over. So they went and they found an old fire truck, refurbished it, rebuilt it, and the effects guys did a great job of putting weights in the top of the truck that would slide. They were on slides. So when all we had to do, as our theory, was get the truck at least 4 to 6 inches on one side up, and these weights would all shift, and that would put the truck on its side. So I would pile up some dirt, make a construction site there, and have a taxi cab cut in front of this, and if my driver can hit that pile of dirt just right and the curb is there, we may get that 6 inches we need. And it's at night, and we all go to work, and they start lighting the streets, and it's taking a long time, and I'm setting my dirt ramp up, and 2 old-time stuntmen were there, just happened to be there. They say, Walter, you think this is gonna work? And about 1 o'clock in the morning, here comes Ron Howard. Everybody's showing up from the studio. They're all there, so now I'm getting nervous. So I had Tony Brubaker was driving the truck, and it was an old truck. And he started it 2 or 3 times, and we hear him coming down this dark street, just the engine's roaring, and he can't get it in gear. So I'm hollering, cut, 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 cut. Then finally, the 3rd time, we heard him hit 2nd gear, and I knew he was coming. And he just had to miss a telephone pole that was there. And Terry Leonard has to bring this yellow taxi cab right in front of him, and he has to clear, or the truck will be on the cab, and we'll kill Terry, too, you know. But it was pretty intense, but it couldn't have worked any better. I really didn't have much confidence, but Ron Howard gave me the confidence and the go-ahead to take your time, make sure it works, and do it your way. We'll gamble with you. We didn't have really a chance to rehearse this particular piece. So we get ready to do it, and the 2 stuntmen are up there, and nobody's near them, and the effects guys start lighting this whole building on fire. And I believe what happened is they lit some fires under the guys first that were up on this catwalk. And they have to get this thing lit, and it must take 15, 20 minutes to get this whole building burning, and now it's getting loud and you can't hear anything. And they're starting to roll the cameras, and I'm concentrating on the 2 stunt guys that are up there. I'm just watching them. And all of a sudden, Bobby Aregi, who was gonna flip off of there, all he did was he just raised his hand one time like that, right when we're rolling the cameras. And I'm saying, as I looked, he didn't do it again, but I said, something's wrong. So I said, cut, 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 stop. And everybody's kind of looking at me like, wait, what are you saying? I said, cut, 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 cut. And I grabbed a scissor lift, and we went up there, and they were both just about unconscious. The fire had taken all the oxygen out of the air up where they were. So the effects guy says, well, okay, well, we won't light this under them. We'll do some venting over here and over there, and we'll go again. But I watched them a lot closer, and we really had some signals down then. I said, if you don't feel you can breathe, wave all your hands, stand up, do anything, you know. But Bobby told me, he says, Walter, all of a sudden I just felt weak, and my head was real light, and I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what. Well, he didn't have any oxygen. When I tell people I did Backdraft, they go, wow, really? And they want to hear the stories, and it was a great experience for me. I know I'm known as a Western guy, but that wasn't much of a Western. That was kind of, different.